Yo, this is Bench Gamer here. So, I have just finished my first day of playing Honkai Star Rail. I played it for about 2 to 3 hours. I streamed it for 5 hours, which translates to about 2 to 3 hours of gameplay. Because I was talking for a lot of it, I was thinking for a lot of it, I was taking my time, and that is exactly what I want to do with this game because I don't want to no life it like a lot of people are on streams these days. Because obviously after Genshin Impact, Hoyoverse became much more popular, it became much more famous, and now there are a bunch of content creators who will pretty much play every single Hoyoverse game that comes out. And a lot of them are, I think they're going to no life this game, play it 18 hours, 24 hours, maybe even more. I don't know how that's humanly possible, but they'll find a way to do it. Essentially, they're going to cover the content for this game for all it's worth, very fast. And I fear that they're going to burn out of content because this game is like and unlike Genshin Impact in a lot of key ways. So let's just get to the most important thing. This game is not like Genshin Impact because it is a turn-based game. And I knew that going into this game, right? I didn't play any of the previous betas, so I didn't have any in-depth knowledge about what the gameplay was going to be like other than it was turn-based. And I also knew that this game was made by the same people as MiHoYo. So in the back of my mind, even though I knew that it wasn't like Genshin Impact, it didn't really dawn on me that how unlike Genshin Impact would be. So when I first started this game, I came to the realization that this game is essentially a traditional JRPG. If you don't like traditional JRPGs, I don't think you will like this game. If you don't like gacha games that are like traditional JRPGs that have turn-based combat, then I don't think you will like this game either. Because in Genshin Impact, when you first load into the game, right, your first impression of this game is a very open world. After the first maybe 15 to 20 minutes of gameplay, you're pretty much free to do whatever the fuck you want. You can follow the main story quest, of course, but you can basically explore the whole world from the get-go, with the exception of maybe Inazuma. But that's essentially the only place you can't really go to. So after the first 15 to 20 minutes, the gameplay of Genshin Impact is very chill. You go into a world that is, there's not really a lot that is obviously wrong with it. There's like pretty skies, there's like pretty trees, you can climb up the tree, you can fall off the tree, you can go on a cliff somewhere, you can climb a tower. Whatever you want to do in Genshin Impact, it feels very freeform. It feels like a very casual, chill game. But in this game, it's not really like that. In this game, you can't even jump. Like, I'm pressing the spacebar right now and you can't jump. That's not a bad thing. That's just how this game works. What this game is you run down a corridor like this, right? You press a button, this is a toggle. You run down a corridor, you see an enemy, and then you attack the enemy. And then you go into a turn-based combat simulator thing. And the combat is fun. That's another thing that surprised me, which is that this game's combat feels a lot like Persona 5. In the way that it feels, even though it is turn-based, it feels quick. It feels impactful, it feels punchy. It feels like if you know what you're doing in this game, then you will beat the game. I haven't gotten too far into it, of course. I've just beaten the dragon thing. So I'm essentially just out of the tutorial zone. I'm probably not even out of the tutorial zone right now. In the next 20 to 30 minutes, I'm sure I will go into the first zone where I will not be handheld 900% of the way. But even in this little snippet of gameplay, I can already tell that this game, you will need to do very purposeful things in the combat to feel rewarded. If you do the right thing, you will be rewarded. If you do the wrong thing, then you probably won't be able to finish the game. In Genshin Impact, it's not really like that. Even though we like obsess about a lot about synergy, team synergy, we obsess a lot about 3 supports, 1 DPS. But the reality is, at least the systems work together, right? If you have a D-Luke in your team and an Ayaka in your team, if you use a Pyro thing, if you use your Pyro ability on an enemy that is not Pyro or does not create a reaction, then Pyro will be on that enemy. And then you switch to Ayaka, you do a Cryo thing, there will be a Vape or a Melt or whatever it's called, and that's basically the systems working together. But in Honkai Star Rail, you will literally fucking die. You will die if you do not do the right thing. If you do not heal your characters, if you do not know how to make them work together, then even in the tutorial zone, I can assure you that you will run into at least one boss that will give you some trouble. And that's the biggest difference. That's the biggest obvious difference between this game and Genshin Impact, which is that it is not open world, it is not action packed, it is action in a turn-based context. but it is not action packed in the same way that Genshin Impact is action packed, which is that you have a lot of leeway to fail without actually failing. In Honkai Star Rail, when you don't know what you're doing, you will just fail. Now, the good thing is that this game is relatively simple to the point where if you know how to match up the different elements, if you know that you have to attack a shield that has a green thing on it with a green character, then you will succeed maybe 90% of the time. If you know how to heal your characters or shield your characters, you will probably succeed 98% of the time. So the bar so far that I have seen for the amount of complexity in this game is quite low. But still, it is different from Genshin Impact in how much deliberateness you need to go into combat with. The second thing that kind of weirded me out is that when you go into the character selection, right? This is one of the second biggest different things with Genshin Impact, which is that in the character selection screen, where you see all of the characters you pulled for, all the hard-earned characters you saved for, you can't angle the camera up and down. You can only swivel the camera around like this on an even surface, on an even plane. So this is the only way you can see your character. And when you zoom in and out, it goes along a plane, this diagonal plane that goes up towards their face. You cannot angle it down and upwards. And you might think that there is a very obvious reason for this, which is that it's censorship. They don't want you to look at this character's panties. They don't want you to look at her butt or ass or whatever. And that was my first thought as well. But the more I looked at this character selection screen, the more I noticed something, which is that there are no idle animations. In Genshin Impact, when you go into a character selection screen, they usually do some kind of idle animation. And I thought that was super strange. Why are they not doing any idle animations? Why do they look so still? Not necessarily bad, mind you. When you zoom up to the characters, I actually think the textures for the characters are much better, or at least slightly better than the ones in Genshin Impact, which makes sense because the environment you're in Honkai Star is much more limited. It's not open world. They don't need to process as many things. You can have better textured characters in this game without breaking your GPU. But even so, this game requires more graphical processing resources than I had first anticipated. If you look in the top left, the temperature for my GPU and CPU are in the 40s and 50s, which is actually about the same or higher than in Genshin Impact. When you're idling in Genshin Impact, for me, it's around the high 30s to around the 40s. In most areas that are not Sumeru, because Sumeru added a whole bunch of polygons and angles to the environment, which is why it lags more there. But in the starting zones, like what's it called in Mondstadt, it usually doesn't take this much processing power, especially not in a zone like this where it is a very confined area. However, what you'll notice is that including the textures being better, you can also see a lot of reflections, just like in the library for Sumeru. So in terms of graphical processing power, if you're on the highest end settings, this game is about equal to Genshin Impact. So I don't know if it scales better on the phone or whether or not you need to even see the reflection. So you might not have to play this game on highest graphical settings because I don't know how much return you will get out of it. But that is the second thing or the third thing that surprised me. I forgot which point I'm on, but which is that this game does not run as well as I thought it would. There are stutters, there are FPS drops. And I'm not sure if that has to do with the GPU, but I assume it does because the GPU is taxed more, or at least about even to with Genshin Impact. And I'm not sure if it's better optimized on the phone or if it's just not as optimized on the PC, or if they need to do more work on PC to make it run better, or if it just takes more processing power to process. So in terms of graphics, it is obviously from a technical standpoint better than Genshin Impact, simply because you have less things to process and they can put more detail on the characters. However, in return, there are no longer idle animations in the character selection screen. Also, when you look at the character selection screen, they are all the same. There's no like elemental differences. Like this character is an electro character, a lightning character, as they call it in Honkai Star Rail. But the background is still the same as all the other characters. there aren't like any sound effects that are different in Genshin Impact. If you go to your character selection screen for an electro character, there will be different sound effects for that electro character compared to like a cryo character or a Nemo character. That doesn't exist here. It has very much being um, standardized and homogenized. Another thing I noticed is that because there are no idle animations, there is also less reason to just look at this character from different angles. Yes, she looks very pretty. Yes, they look very pretty, but they're not doing anything important. There's no like voice lines or anything. And if you look at the left-hand side, there's also something missing. There is no place for you to look at when it comes to the character voice lines and the character stories. That part is missing. I have not unlocked everything. There is still artifacts that I have to unlock in terms of the character, what's it called? The character power levels. And after I unlock that, I think I will have unlocked everything to do with the character screen panel. But I'm not sure if I am going to be able to unlock the character voice lines and character story panel because I don't know if it exists. Maybe it will be unlocked in the future, maybe it won't. But that is something that I am conspicuously noticing with Honkai Star, which is that in terms of the personalized storytelling when it comes to the characters, there is a bit missing here. They don't have item animations. They don't have the part where it details their story and their voice lines. And even in this main hub right now, the one you're seeing right here, the one I'm in right now in this Astro Express, you can't switch characters. Like I'm pressing 1, 2, 3, 4, and when you look in the top, in the bottom right, there is no panel for the 4 different characters. This hub is only for the main character, which I find really weird because you don't really have those instances in Genshin Impact unless it's a very purposeful, like cutscene oriented sequence, right? When you're in the Sumeru tree, when you're in the Ermin Soul, usually there's like a story sequence where you can only run around as the main character. But in here, you can only run around as the main character, even if you're actually doing stuff. So I find that also very weird. This game just seems to be much more focused on a very specific story. Like it means to tell a story that is directed, is what I'm telling you. You're not going to run around and like find this neat little thing that is not planned. You're not going to like climb a tower and find a chest. All of this seems very obvious, but it just surprised me how much else they took out. There's no more auto animations. I already said that, but like why? Why does it not have that? Why can't I pan my camera? Because you can still pan your camera in the open game, right? It's not like when you have these characters selected out in the open world, you can still angle your camera down like this and basically see their panties. Yeah, you can see her panties a little bit right here. So don't ban me, MiHoYo. But it's still possible. It's the exact same as not Honkai Star, as in Genshin Impact. When you pan down enough, then the character above disappears. So wouldn't that be the same in the character selection panel as well? So there's less reason for me to pan around the camera since there's no idle animations and there's no voice lines or story summary here, which is good from the perspective of a person who doesn't want to be spoiled on the story, because often what'll happen is that you'll pull for characters that are or that you have not met yet, and that could be a bad thing. So maybe they're thinking about those characters, those people in mind. Maybe when you meet them in real life, I mean not real life, but in the game itself, in the story, then their voice lines and their character voice lines and their stories will be revealed here on the left-hand side somehow. But I kind of doubt it. I don't know. It's possible, but the combination of the very focused nature of this game when it comes to storytelling, as well as the combat, the lack of a jump button, the formularity of it, does make me think that this game will be lacking some things that make Genshin Impact fans happy. I don't think this game is as simpy, if that's a word. I don't think this game is generous to people who want to simp for characters as Genshin Impact is. I don't feel like this game will cater to that kind of fan base. I think ultimately what is going to happen into this game, based on my very, very limited first day knowledge of it, is that it's going to be a very sweaty JRPG-esque gacha game, and that is that is the market that Genshin Impact, not Genshin Impact, but MiHoYo wants to cater to with this game, which is that eventually it'll be about the meta, even more so than Genshin Impact, because there's less things to obsess about with the characters. Which sounds weird because it has no PvP. So those are my main thoughts based on my first day of gameplay. It's really weird that I can't pan my camera. It's really weird that there's no voice lines and no story section here. It's really jarring to play a game by MiHoYo that is not Genshin Impact like. Although here is the thing that I will say about it on the positive side. I find the combat really fun. Which is not something I was actually expecting. I expected this game to be much more Genshin-like, but for the combat to be just whatever. But even though it is a very simple combat system where you match up the certain elements to another element of shield, and then you do damage to that elemental shield, it feels deliberate enough and with enough technique involved and fast enough, especially because the music is so hype, and the enemies are doing enough damage to me, even at a very early stage. I'm very excited about this game from a combat perspective, even though it's turn-based, because it feels challenging. It feels like when I'm battling a boss, that boss will fuck me up if I don't heal my teammates, and I never really have to do that in Genshin Impact anymore. Maybe it's just because I'm in the very early stages of the game, but having some kind of challenge be present that's not just a time trial is very refreshing, especially from a game that has this type of aesthetics, because let's be real, even though other games exist that offer that kind of challenge, they don't look like this. They don't look this good. So yeah, that's basically my first day impressions. Thanks for watching. Sorry about being ranty and all that, but I'm really excited to keep playing this game. And maybe I will be proven wrong. Maybe it'll somehow unlock idle animations for this character selection screen once I get to a certain level of, I don't know, friendship with this character. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention is Genshin Impact also caters to the simping player base by letting you place these characters in the teapot, right? I wonder if that's going to be the same for the Astro Express. Are you going to go to all these different worlds and then collect these characters, and they'll actually join you on the Astro Express, and then you'll be able to give them presents or something, and then talk to them and, I don't know, have romance relationships? Because this game's combat is very like Persona 5. Why not go a step farther? Why not let us have social relationships with the characters that we pull for? That would be amazing. And if you don't pull for these characters, it would be even cooler if you don't pull for those characters, then they don't actually join you on the Astro Express. That would be hilarious to me. Anyways, I think that's it for everything I'm thinking about in terms of the future, the possible future of this game and what could happen. So yeah, that's it. Bench Gamer signing out. See you guys later.